Welcome to Sable Island Conference 2021, a series of virtual presentations about the natural wonders and human history of this fascinating island. This is session 7, the annual Christmas bird count on Sable Island, presented by Greg Stroud. I am April Hennigar, Chair of the Board of Directors for Friends of Sable Island, a volunteer-run charitable organization dedicated to the long-term protection of all things Sable Island. We've been holding a biannual conference since 2015 as a major fundraiser for our education programs and especially our annual scholarships. We had hoped to hold it in person for 2021, but this proved too difficult with the pandemic restrictions. So we are happy to present Sable Island Conference 2021 virtually. The annual Christmas bird count is the longest running wildlife survey in the world. Every year, birdwatching enthusiasts of all levels, photographers, and anyone looking to enjoy a winter walk or drive, get outside and explore their love for nature, while contributing to one of the world's most important wildlife censuses. For the last several years, Parks Canada team members have scoured the shores and dunes of Sable Island National Park Reserve and counted every bird they see with some interesting and unexpected results. Our presenter, Greg Stroud, has worked for Parks Canada for over 35 years in various national parks, marine conservation areas, and national historic sites. He is currently one of 2 operations coordinators for Sable Island National Park Reserve, where he spends 6 months of every year. Greg is originally from Newfoundland and a graduate from Memorial University with a degree in botany. He is an avid birder and has traveled many different countries in search of birds. He also enjoys exploring all aspects of the outdoors and is now looking forward to exploring Nova Scotia's coastal environments on his sailboat and hopefully one day sailing to Sable Island. Over to you, Greg.
Thank you very much, April. It's my pleasure to be here today to share the place that I call home for 6 months of the year with you. It's quite a privilege from my perspective to be able to live in one of these special places in the country. And I don't take this lightly. I find that having the opportunity to live in some of the most incredible places in the country, including Sable Island, has been a great privilege, and I hold a lot of thanks to Parks Canada and really the people of Canada for allowing me the opportunity to do that. So over the next little while, what I'll do is I will introduce to you a little bit about Sable, and I'll also talk a little bit about the Christmas bird count and our annual bird count that we do on Sable. So over the next series of slides, you'll get a chance to see some of the things that make Sable special from my perspective. As April said, I'm a botanist by training, and I do love plants, and I've been photographing all the plants of Sable for the last 4 years. It's 5 years ago I started in Sable, but I took about a year and a bit off, and then I was offered a full-time job. So I've been there now for 2.5 years straight. So it's about 4 years in total on the island, 2 months on, 2 months off. That's usually our rotation. The other person, Sarah Medill, is the other operations coordinator. So we share that duty over a full year. So we're really responsible for the island. Once researchers come, whether it's contractors doing work on our facilities, whether it's DFO coming in to do seal work, it's a variety of different people that come to the island for various reasons. And our job is to coordinate those activities and all the operations on the island. And of course, visitors are important too. So this is Sable Island that you see in front of you. This is what we call home for 6 months of the year. And it really is just a wink in the sea. If you're flying in, it looks just like this little tiny wink in a vast ocean of water. And it's just incredible that this even exists in the first place. So from a Parks Canada perspective, and I've worked with, as April said, I've worked with Parks Canada for over 35 years. So what is it that we do, and why is Sable Island even a national park? That's like extremely important to us. That Sable Island is now a national park. But what we do is we protect, present, and we celebrate these special places. So if you go right across the entire country, you'll find places in every stretch that you can imagine, and you'll find national parks, national historic sites, and national marine conservation areas, and urban parks even. And all these places, what we do is we protect these on behalf of all Canadians. We also present them, and that's extremely important. It's not only about protection. We want people to love and enjoy and celebrate these places as well. So Sable Island is located off Nova Scotia. I'm sure most people on this call already knows that. But if you look at where it's located, we're 300 kilometers totally east of Halifax. If you just fly straight out from Halifax, and we do this with Sable Aviation, which is one of our regular providers. And they don't only bring us here for our cruise ships, but he also brings supplies, and he also brings visitors. And if you want to know more about how to get to Sable, just check out their website or check out the Parks Canada website, and you will certainly learn more about how to get to the island. But we're about 160 kilometers from the closest land in Nova Scotia, which is in around Canso, but we're 300 kilometers east of Halifax. And you can see where we're positioned. We're right out at the edge of the Continental Shelf, and that's where the Gulf Stream comes up. So that is very important for the life and for the birds of Sable. So how does Sable persist anyway? Everybody says, well, how is it that you could have this little sliver of land positioned so far off land and it just doesn't disappear? Well, interestingly, it kind of is changing shape all the time. So it's like the big shape shifter. So if you look at these maps from 1766 to 1964, you can see how much the island has actually changed and repositioned itself. And this occurs from 4 different reasons. There's 2 major currents. We've got the Labrador Current that swings around the north side, and we've got the Gulf Stream that swings up around the south side, and they kind of create currents right around the entire island. And this is a very big part of what keeps the island where it is. Also, of course, we've got wind, and it's always windy on Sable. When it's not windy, it means it's going to be windy. So it's usually, the calm before the storm is incredible on Sable. When you get that dead calm air, you know there's a storm coming. And of course, with that comes waves. And no matter where you are and what side of the island you're on, it's always wavy. So you got these waves continually depositing sand back up on the beach. And I don't have to tell you about storms. It's legendary for its storms, with over 350 shipwrecks on the island in the last 400 years. So storms are a big part of what shapes and reshapes this island. So these 4 things really does change and mold this landscape throughout time immemorial, and it is absolutely incredible, changing all the time. For example, after a big storm, the sand moves around and you'd swear it was snow. Like it could be a 5-foot drift of sand, which is normally snow if you're here on the mainland. So it changes so quickly. So one of the things that is synonymous with Sable, of course, is the Sable Island horses. And they are infamous, as we all know. Everybody wants to know about the horses. Even today down in Annapolis, I got questioned in the local grocery store, how many horses are there? There's about 500, probably a little more now. Once Sarah gets the numbers crunched. Sarah is the horse guru. She has her PhD in horses, and she crunches the numbers every year for the University of Saskatchewan, who comes out every year to study the horses on the island. And she's a graduate of that program, and we're very fortunate as Parks Canada to have her as an employee. So every year she sits in front of her computer and she knows every horse on the island. And it is interesting when I send her images sometimes, she sends back notes, this is so-and-so and so-and-so, and I know that family really well. So it's pretty amazing. But the island is more than just horses. The island is certainly infamous for the horses, but we do have a large amount of other wildlife that we have. And during the wintertime, when we hold our Christmas bird count, this is what we have to deal with. These are gray seals. And gray seal season starts in the middle of December, when a couple of 100,000 gray seals descend on the island, and 80,000 pups. And you can see all the pups here, all these white dots that you see amongst the other gray ones, they're all young. So even in this one picture, there's hundreds of pups. 80,000 gray seal pups are born every year on the island. It's hard to imagine. This place is like something out of National Geographic during the wintertime. So by the middle of December, the numbers start to increase. And by the end of December, they're in full force. So this makes it challenging from a Christmas bird count for sure, because as you can imagine, you cannot walk through these. So we have to work our way through the less dense population around the island. And we always walk with a stick because we never know where one might be around a sand dune. And the mothers, of course, are going to protect the young. Interestingly, lots of the adult males are also located alongside the females, and you think they look like a happy family unit, but that's not the way it works. The males are there because they're just waiting for the females to come into estrus. They're there for one reason only. They're there to breed, and they're just waiting for the females in order to breed. So they'll protect the female because they want to breed with her, not because they want to protect the family unit. But this is what we face. It's hard to fathom the numbers of gray seals that we have. So we're infamous for the horses, of course, but unknowingly to a lot of the population, they don't understand that we have the largest breeding population of gray seals anywhere in the world. And that is, in my mind, one of the most incredible wildlife phenomena anywhere in North America that occurs on Sable every year. So the Christmas bird count. Well, for me, I've been with Parks Canada for over 35 years, and that's when I started doing Christmas bird counts. So I've done them in many different national parks all across the country, and I've done them in many different places. Like I overwintered in Ottawa one year, so I phoned up the local people and said, hey, can I participate in your Christmas bird count? So I did. So I've never missed a year without participating in at least one count per year. Sometimes I do more. But the question is, what is a Christmas bird count? So a Christmas bird count history. I'll do this very quickly. You can talk about this bird count forever and a day, but it started in 1900 by 27 bird watchers. There's this guy, Frank Chapman, who figured that he was going to protest the annual Christmas hunt. Yes, there was an annual Christmas side hunt. It's when different individuals were paired up in the different sides, and they go out in a competition every Christmas and shoot as many birds and animals as they could. And the ones who shot the most were the winners. So Frank Chapman was disgusted with this activity. So he said, we're going to go out and count birds. So he had 27 different bird watchers from North America to go out in their backyards and count birds instead of shooting them. So that's when the Christmas bird count started. And what they did over the years, they formalized this into a scientific process as well, where they have count circles that are 15-mile radius. I use miles because it was started in the States, and that was the official radius, and whatever that calculates into kilometers. But it's a 15-mile radius. You pick your point, and you get it officially documented or registered, and then you have a 15-mile radius, and you send counters out into the field in that radius to count as many species as you can and the total number of birds in a 24-hour period. So that's the gist of what the count is like. So you have a compiler that organizes it. And if you want to participate, all you have to do is get on the website, find your local compiler, and ask them to be a volunteer, and they will help you through the process. We have over 2,100 active count circles in North America, Caribbean, and in parts of Mexico now. And it's the largest community-based census or citizen science program in the world. So it has over 50,000 participants that participate every year, which is pretty phenomenal. And in Nova Scotia, we have 50 counts alone. So when I moved to Nova Scotia, it was like, this is great. This is easy to participate. So I've done the Bridgetown one, the Annapolis one. And when I got a job out on Sable, that's when I started to count out here as an official count circle. So as I said, it's the 15-mile radius, and all the birds are counted within that 24-hour period. And the results are compiled by Bird Studies Canada. And they do the Canadian compilation. And then when that's done, it's sent to the National Audubon Society for final tabulation of the results. And then they're posted on their website and anybody can access it. And this is the glory of it. These counts can be used by scientists, and they've been used as valid surveys for decades because the sheer power of the numbers of people that are actually in the field counting. So they can do a variety of things. If you've got that many people out counting in various areas, it helps us track eruptive species like finches when their numbers go up some years and they move in all different areas. It is picked up by these Christmas bird counts. It can also track distributions of species as well, and distribution expansions of species where they normally wouldn't be found. Eventually they start ending up in various other areas. It can also document any rare birds that are blown off course. So all this data can be used by all kinds of different scientists for lots of different reasons. So it is a very valid way that you or anybody else, even if you're not a bird biologist, can still contribute in a big way. So we started ours in 2020, and we did it on January 1, 2020. And the first year when I did it, in 2020, we selected the first day of the year, and luckily Sarah did it on January 1 last year. I did it again this year on January 1. So we're going to always try to keep January 1 because that's a day off for us on Sable, which is very rare. We usually work every day or get Sundays off, but this day, January 1, we know we're always going to be off, and it gives us that consistency from year to year to be able to track birds. The reason I throw this cardinal out, because last year a cardinal showed up on Sable. It was the first one ever recorded, and this picture was taken on Sable. And that was a part of our Christmas bird count last year, which was phenomenal. It stopped singing sometime in the spring, so we don't know if it left or if it came to the end of its life. But it was really pleasant having the cardinal on Sable serenading us every morning, which is quite impressive. So we've done it 3 years now, and hopefully we can continue and still contribute to that larger picture of science of tracking these birds. So one of the most common birds that we have, and really certainly the most common songbird that we have nesting on the island, is the Ipswich sparrow. Now the Ipswich sparrow is a subspecies of a savanna sparrow. Now what makes this subspecies special? It's found nowhere else in the world breeding except on Sable Island. And I took this picture late in the fall, the first year I was on Sable, and it shows that really nice, soft, brown, drab, sandy color. And they blend in quite well with the landscape of Sable. So this is a young or immature bird that would have been born that year. Now, some of these birds do not migrate. Some of these birds stay on the island. And this is where the Christmas bird count can certainly help too, to track some of these numbers from year to year. So this year in the Christmas bird count, we had 45 Ipswich sparrows seen in the entire bird count area. So that's 45 in that 15-mile radius. So there's probably a few hundred that overwinter on Sable during the winter. These birds that overwinter, they get a better chance at breeding in the spring if they make it through the winter. Of course, if you get ice storms or snowstorms, it could spell the end of their lives, but hopefully, and they're pretty tough birds. We see them hanging around even during snowstorms. If they make it through, it means they got the first crack at the best breeding ground in the spring, and they can get an early start at breeding. Most of them migrate out, and they either go directly down off the coast of the States, or they go to Nova Scotia and then work their way down. And they overwinter usually down off the coastal islands off the States. And I was just talking to one gentleman before this presentation. He said there's one showed up on the Christmas bird count in Halifax, and they do show up, especially during migration, at feeders or along the coast in Nova Scotia for sure. So next spring, you'll start seeing them coming back. So if you're out along the sand dunes in April, that's usually when they move through. You might see one of these feeding along the edge of the sand dune before they hop back out to Sable. Now, in the summertime, this is what they look like. They got that yellow band above the eye, but you can still see that they're real nice sandy color. They're not the real dark color that you find in a savanna sparrow. But you'll notice on this particular bird, it's got bands on its legs. We had the Ipswich banders come out this spring, or in that last fall, I mean, and they banned these birds, and then he tracked them. They banned them in the States, and they banned them on Sable. And then based on the color patterns and the color arrangements and on what side of the legs got the silver versus the plastic, we can tell exactly what the individual of these birds are. So what I did is I took a picture of this, sent it off to Rebecca, and she could tell me exactly what bird species or what bird this is, and tell us the age and when it was banded and so on. So this is something that we do on Sable. It's like a little game in the spring when the birds come back. We find as many banded ones as we can, take pictures of them and send them off to the researchers. It's kind of neat. Okay, one of the other songbirds that seems to manage to like hanging around Sable is the yellow-rumped warbler. Now you can see where this bird would get its name. It's got that yellow rump, or we also call them butterbutts, because they got that yellow, that's the color of butter, right on their butt. So it's another common name. During the fall, they're very drab. Now these are warblers, and they have very thin bills, as you can see, and they're predominantly insect eaters. But when they're out on Sable, they will feed on whatever they can. So if there's seeds around, even in the compost pile, you'll see them feeding in there too. But they'll pick on any little insects, that like pupa that might be poking around in the buildings, around the windows. So they do manage to survive, and we've had some that survive right through the winter. So unfortunately, they get a bad rap because they're so common in North America. People says, oh, it's just another yellow-rumped warbler. During the winter, it's quite special to see these birds just hanging around in the landscape of Sable. Now in the summertime, this is what they look like. And they are spectacular birds. The males are beautifully patterned with these black bibs, black mask, and you can see the yellow on the breast and the head, plus the yellow on the rump. And the males are spectacular looking. So unfortunately, they get a bad rap because they're so common. Like a lot of common things, people just say, oh, well, it's just a yellow rump warbler, or it's just a robin, or it's just a whatever. But these birds are pretty spectacular. So we hope that they'll make it through. This year, we had 5 of them on the Christmas bird count. So that was quite nice to see. Last year, I had 22 on the bird count. Just another robin. Now you see that this robin is in the trees. We have no trees on Sable. I took this picture not on Sable, but I didn't have a picture of a robin on Sable. But we do have a robin that's now overwintering on Sable, at least one, if not 2. We had 2 on the Christmas bird count, but I only saw 1 when I left last week. So I don't know if there's only 1 left or not. But we do get robins moving through on a regular basis in the spring and the fall, and they will overwinter. So we did have robins on our Christmas bird count this year. And they are spectacular birds. If you take a close look at them, they do have that beautiful white pattern underneath the bill as well, with black lines in it that you normally never see. So I challenge everyone, next time you take a look at a robin, take a real good look at a robin and all of its little intricacies, because they are pretty spectacular birds. One bird that we've got on the island right now in fairly good numbers are snow buntings. My wife calls them snow budgies. But they're snow buntings, and they usually turn a beautiful white color in the spring. But during the winter time, they can have rust patterns on them as well. So they nest in the far Arctic, but this is their winter home. So we do get flocks of those. So we had several flocks of those show up on the Christmas bird count again this year as well. And we see them every year. They start showing up in November usually, and they'll stay till February, March, and they start heading back north again. But they are quite beautiful birds and quite striking, and a great addition to the winter fauna for sure. Okay, one of the most predominant birds that we have in the island in the winter time are the great black-backed gulls. Now these birds are huge. They're the largest gull species we have in North America, and they're big. You can see this particular bird very black across the wings and unmistakable. There's no other bird that we have that can be mistaken for the black-backed gull. Back in Newfoundland, we call them saddlebacks. They got that big red dot on the bill, and that's called I always call it a feed me button, because if you ever watch them on their breeding ground, the chicks will actually pick on that button, pick until the bird regurgitates food. So experiments have shown if you cover up or paint over that red dot, they will not regurgitate the food because it's really in response to the young picking on that red dot. So they have those big yellow bills with a red dot, big black back, and pink legs, which you can see there. So they are the numbers of blackbacks, even though they nest in the summer in low numbers, the numbers just go up into the thousands in the wintertime, and they come here to feed on this. You see the blackback here has got these nice little pink legs, but you notice the bill is very red, and that's red because they're feeding on dead seals. With a couple of 100,000 seals on the island every winter, there's bound to be lots of dead ones, and that's what they do. They scavenge on dead seals, and they feed heavily on them. So banding has shown that these birds, these blackback gulls, will come from PEI, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, and even Maine, and they descend on the island in the wintertime in huge numbers. And this year we had about 3,500 on our Christmas bird count, which is far surpassed any other bird species that we have on the island in the wintertime. They are the most common gull that we have in the winter for sure. The other second most common gull, which by the way is only a winter visitor. This bird does not stay on the island in the summertime. This is an Iceland gull. And Iceland gulls are very clean looking. Some of them have totally white wings, and some have just a few little black lines in the tips of the wings. But you can see the underside of the wing, there's hardly any black. These are Iceland gulls. And there's lots around the coast of Nova Scotia as well, the sable. And they come down here to take advantage of all the food source. This is their winter home. So the Iceland gull numbers this year was around probably around 400. So even though it's not the 3,500 blackbacks or so, there's still a large number that we have. About 10% of the gull population is made up of Iceland gulls in the wintertime. And they don't usually, I've never seen them feeding on dead seals. They usually feed in the surf and along the ocean edge, picking food off the waves. And they're quite lovely to watch for sure. So they're Iceland gulls, and they breed way north. So they'll go up in the Baffin Islands and further, and that's where they nest. So this is their winter home. So it's quite a treat to see these gulls in the wintertime, and they're such lovely birds to watch. The other common bird that we have, gull that we have, is the herring gull. And like the blackback gull, it has that big yellow bill and a red dot, but it has a silverish back or gray back as opposed to a black back. And that's the other one we have in the wintertime. And this bird this year only about 50 in the bird count. So their numbers, even though they're the most common gull in the summertime breeding and the most abundant gull, in the wintertime they are not. So many of them leave, but some do hang on. We don't know if the herring gulls that overwinter in Sable are actually the ones that breed or not. We just don't know. So they could be from Newfoundland or it could be from Nova Scotia that just come here to feed on the seals. We just don't know. But in the summertime, they're a common breeder. There's no question. So the numbers were only around 50 this year for the winter. Now this bird is not always seen off Sable, but for whatever reasons, the winds were right this year. I had about 80 of them. So these are called black-leg kittiwakes. So you can see the black legs hanging down underneath them, totally black, and the wingtips are also totally black. And they have a small yellowish greenish bill, but no red dot. So these are black-leg kittiwakes, and they are a gull as well. In Newfoundland, we call them tickleasses or tickleaces. That's the common name for them. So, and there were tons of them around Sable Island for a couple of weeks feeding in the surf, and they were quite remarkable to watch. This is an adult, but the ones that I saw most were young birds, and you can see this beautiful pattern on its back and a black line on the back of its head and black on the tail. There was a rare gull that showed up, and unfortunately I didn't get a picture of it. It was called a Sabines gull, and it was feeding with the kittiwakes. So it was a very striking gull as well. And fortunately, I don't have a picture of it, but if you want to look it up, it's called a Sabines gull. And I've seen only 2 on Sable since I've been here in 5 years. So it's a very It's a very rare bird compared to the kittiwakes, which are regular and breed by the tens of thousands on the East Coast every year. But they are striking to watch, and they're only half the size of a herring gull, so they're almost like little butterflies flying over the water. Now, one bird that showed up on the Christmas bird count this year was a thick-billed murre. Thick-billed murres are members of the Elsid family, and that's the same family that you get puffins. And sometimes, like just before I came off the island, I did find a dead puffin. So puffins overwinter out off Sable. Murres, like this murre, overwinters out off Sable. They kind of look like penguins when you look at them. And interestingly, the first penguin name came from a cousin of this bird called the great auk. You may have heard of it. It was a flightless bird that nested in Newfoundland and Iceland and a few other places. And that bird was called penguin. It's a Welsh word meaning white head, which the great auk had a big white patch on the head. And all penguins were named after that first flightless bird. And if you look at this bird on the beach, it does look like a penguin. So this is a thick-billed murre. And we had several of those on the Christmas bird count this year sitting offshore. And we also had this little guy. And unfortunately, this is the only picture I've got, but it's called a dovekey. It's a little tiny thing. And this one got trapped underneath my step. And they were out flying around the water everywhere. And for some reason this year, hundreds of them are being washed up on the beach dead. And we don't know why. So apparently all over Newfoundland and Nova Scotia, you'll find this little tiny Elsid called a dovekey, which is related to the murre and the puffins. And they normally nest in Greenland, Baffin Island, and places like that by the hundreds of thousands. And now for some reason, lots of them are showing up on the beaches, and they're trying to find out what the reason is, but we don't know yet. So when you're out on the beach looking for birds, sometimes you see this scene, which is quite remarkable. And you see hundreds of these little tiny shorebirds running around the edge of the pond or the edge of the ocean. And they're called sanderlings. And sanderlings are the cutest little birds. They do not nest on Sable Island. They also, like the Iceland gulls, are a high Arctic breeder, and they overwinter on Nova Scotia beaches, well, especially Sable Island. So you'll find some off Nova Scotia, but Sable Island, we had over 350 this year, and that's quite typical for on the Christmas bird counts to get these. So usually average between 300 and 400 that use the island in the winter. And then in the spring, by May, they're gone back north again to their breeding grounds up north, and then they show up again in next fall. And they're just the cutest things to watch running around at the edge of the ocean. The other shorebird that we got this year was a black-bellied plover. We had one. Sarah Beanlands helped me out this year with this particular count because she was on the island at the time. And she said, Greg, I think there's a bird back there that doesn't look like the others. So we quickly went back and took a look, and sure enough, it was this black-bellied plover in total winter plumage that decided to use Sable as an overwintering place. So we got one on our Christmas bird count. In the summertime, this is what they look like. They have black bellies. So they are also high Arctic breeders, and they come down to Sable, and they usually go through Sable and go further south. But we had one that actually overwintered here. So sometimes we get the odd one staying for the winter, but most of them leave. So it was quite a treat to see that one this year show up on the island. Some of the ducks that were out off the island this year, one was, they're called long-tailed ducks, and they're spectacular ducks. Now, this is a male. Males are got those two long plume feathers and beautiful patterns. And they're the true sea ducks. They like to hang around the ocean edges. So all over Nova Scotia, you'll see them right now. And we had several as well out off Sable this year for the Christmas bird count. Surprising to us, we had a couple of wood ducks. And in the winter times, wood ducks look in their non-breeding plumage look a bit odd. And we had a couple of females on Sable this year. I didn't take this picture on Sable. I took this picture down in Annapolis, but this is what they look like during the winter time. And so we had a couple of them overwinter and showed up on the Christmas bird count. And I've never seen them in the winter time before, so that was quite a treat to find this year. The punk rockers of the bird world, it's these guys. So these are the red-breasted mergansers. And red-breasted mergansers are known to nest on Sable, and we get flocks of 40 and 50 sometimes on the island, even through the winter. So I didn't get them on the Christmas bird count day, but I did get them in the count week. So 3 days before and 3 days after the count, you'll find, we also keep track of the bird species in that range, and we report those as well. There's only one official day for your count, but this becomes what's called a count week bird. So this is a male red-breasted merganser, or I call them the punk rockers of the duck world. Other birds that showed up on the Christmas bird count this year is the pintail, and pintails are spectacular looking ducks. And you see this nice male with a long tail feather, and we had 3 of those show up this year, which is kind of nice on the Christmas bird count. The most common bird from a duck perspective this year was a black duck, and we had over 50 of them. And black duck is the standard duck that you see all over Nova Scotia as well. So usually these are regular ducks. We always get 1 or 2 pintails showing up. Some of the other birds that showed up during count week was this particular one. This is a white-winged crossbill. Crossbills are a type of finch, and they have a cross in their bill that's used to be able to pry cones open to get at the seeds. So every now and then we get a few of these showing up on the island. Whenever they do, it's quite a treat because we have no trees. So this one is feeding on an old evening primrose stalk, and you see them just tearing these things apart to get at the seeds inside. So it's quite a nice bird to find this year. It too was not found on bird count day, but it was found during the bird count week. This guy blew by us a couple of days after the bird count. So this is a peregrine falcon. And peregrine falcons will come down and terrorize the gulls. You'll see them chasing them around all the time. So they'll take down a gull and feed on them. So there is a peregrine that was hanging around all through the Christmas bird count area. So we get to count them for count week, but not for the count day. So these are incredible to watch because they're so fast, and usually when a flock of gulls just fly into the air all of a sudden, then the first thing I do is look around to see if there's a peregrine in the area that's flushed it. And lots of times we'll see the peregrine chasing them around everywhere, which is quite nice. Now, so from a Christmas bird count, one of the most spectacular birds that we have on the island right now is a snowy owl. We got this guy as well, or girl, or whichever it is. We got it in the count week, but not on the count day. We scoured the area and we couldn't find it on count day. And then one of the guys said, "Hey, Greg, look what's out on the dune." And sure enough, out on the dune, there was the snowy owl staring at us. So it is quite special to see these birds. They will sometimes hang around in the summer. And this summer, it stayed around our main station where our tern colony is, and it was terrorizing the terns. So it used to have certain areas that it fed on the terns on a regular basis that was just a pile of wings. So it was always taking down the terns. So this is a snapshot of some of the birds that we had from this year's Christmas bird count, and also some birds we had from our count week. And it is a pretty special place to bird watch because we never know what we're going to find. And the Christmas bird count is one of those days that gives you a great excuse just to get outside, just to see what's around, just to explore all your own backyard. And you'd be amazed at what you'll find in your own backyard if you take the time to just get out and explore. So I invite everybody to check out the Christmas bird count website in Birds Canada. Find out what's happening in Nova Scotia or wherever you're from, and check in your own backyard and volunteer to participate if you can. So from my perspective, we get to do it on Sable whenever we can, and I'll do wherever I am. I'll continue to do it. So I want to thank April for helping me set this presentation up because I had some problems at the beginning, but she was very good at leading me through the Zoom call, and thank the Friends of Sable Island for everything that they do to continue to promote what we do as a national park. And it's with their help and support that bringing this kind of thing to everyone that makes this kind of special for us as Parks Canada. So with that said, I will end my presentation, and I will certainly open it up now for any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Greg, for sharing your enthusiasm for Sable Island with us. I, for one, am very envious of you and your work location, but I'm also greatly reassured that our favorite National Park Reserve is in great hands. For those watching the recording, if you learned something today, please consider a small charitable donation towards our scholarship program. For those attending the live session, we will stop recording now and take some questions and hear some stories.